Greetings from the heart of Munich at Café Datenschutz. Today's topic is the data protection requirements that you must consider when transferring personal data in the ACD deal. We will discuss what you need to know. More on this in today's vid. In short, a few introductory words. What is actually an asset deal and what is a share deal? A share deal is when you acquire shares in a company during a business transaction. In contrast, an asset deal involves the transfer of specific assets, as opposed to a company as a whole. It is of utmost importance to note that they are not allowed to transfer personal data, such as customer data, to a buyer in the same way as other assets, like a machine, without complying with the requirement of data protection law. This law stipulates that a corresponding legal basis must be in place for such transfers to take place. These can essentially be, firstly, the consent of the affected individual, then everything that is legally required, and thirdly, the transfer based on a balancing of interests. Yes, and that is precisely the question. When am I permitted to transfer the data in that manner with a balancing of interests? And when do I need to acquire consent? And naturally, for such a business transaction, it is a substantial distinction whether I have to inquire beforehand or if I can simply continue with information and the opportunity to object. And the Data Protection Conference has developed scenarios in this location, specifying the conditions and circumstances in which data can be transferred as part of the ACD deal. And today we will look at these together. The following scenarios have been identified. On the one hand, the transfer of customer data in ongoing contractual relationships. And the supervisory authorities state that, provided the civil law requirements of paragraph 415 BGB are fulfilled, you are allowed to easily transfer the relevant personal data as part of the contractual performance. Then there is the scenario of claims. So if you want to assert claims and you are essentially selling these claims you have, this transfer is also permissible without the consent of the affected individuals who are involved in the claims being transferred. Then there is the group of interested parties who have not yet signed, and here the supervisory authorities differentiate as follows. There are the interested parties who are younger than 3 years old, so where the initial inquiry is less than 3 years old. You have the right to transfer this data based on legitimate interest without any restrictions. And then there is the scenario of data from company inquiries that are older than 3 years. And these data may only be transferred to the extent necessary for the fulfillment of retention obligations from tax regulations in order to comply with legal requirements and ensure proper record-keeping practices. And last but not least, there are the payment details, PayPal information, IBAN, and similar details. Or even health data. And the supervisory authorities say that for the transfer of these sensitive data to the new acquirer, explicit consent of the affected individuals is required. While some are in the midst of life, others are looking for a place to sit. And with that, we come to the conclusion. When transferring data in the context of the ACID deal, it is of utmost importance to consider data protection requirements right from the outset, as this can have a significant and far-reaching impact on the overall success and outcome of the business transaction in question. In the case of an ACID deal, the relevant case groups of data protection authorities must be taken into consideration, taking into account the conditions under which data can be transferred, either based on legitimate interest or contractual necessity, or in special cases when the consent of the affected individuals is required. What else has happened in data protection? The ECJ is currently deliberating on whether fingerprints may also be mandatory in identity cards. Link in the description. Thank you for your attention.